Have you ever noticed how some people seem to carry an unexplainable calm, even when everything around them is falling apart? While most of us spiral after a harsh comment at work or a cruel remark on social media, there are those who walk through storms as if they were protected by an invisible shield. The secret: they mastered what the ancient Stoics called the art of receiving. Let's get straight to the point. You don't know how to receive. And I'm not talking about gifts or compliments. I'm talking about receiving life as it actually is. Receiving criticism without falling apart. Receiving praise without inflating your ego. Receiving loss without becoming the loss. Receiving success without turning into walking arrogance. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote something in Meditations that should be etched into everyone's mind. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Do you see the move? He didn't say you control what happens. He said you control how you receive what happens. And here's the brutal truth no one wants to hear. Most of your suffering doesn't come from what happens to you, but from how you receive it. Did that betrayal hurt? Of course, but what's destroying you are the endless movies you keep replaying in your head. Did that missed opportunity frustrate you? Absolutely. But what's paralyzing you is the catastrophic story you built about your future. The Stoics understood this over 2,000 years ago. Epictetus, born a slave and later one of the most influential thinkers in history, taught, "It's not events that disturb people, but their judgments about them." Translation: the problem isn't what shows up at your door. The problem is how you open it. Think about it. How many times have you turned a neutral comment into a personal attack? How many times have you interpreted silence as rejection? How many times have you taken an ordinary situation and turned it into a Greek tragedy? That's not sensitivity. That's a lack of self-mastery. That's not knowing how to receive. The Stoic art of receiving begins with a revolutionary insight. You are not obligated to accept every interpretation your mind offers you. Your mind will offer catastrophes, conspiracies, and drama. It's very good at that. But you, the conscious observer behind the thoughts, can simply say, "Interesting, but no, thank you. I'll receive this differently." Seneca, another giant of Stoicism, was exiled, persecuted, and eventually ordered by Nero to take his own life. And do you know what he wrote through all of that? The life of a wise person is disturbed by nothing. Not because he was numb or disconnected from reality, but because he developed the ability to receive even horror with a trained, disciplined, sovereign mind. Now pay close attention. Receiving well does not mean passive acceptance. It's not about becoming an emotional doormat. It's the opposite. It's about building a center so solid that you can receive any storm without being dragged by it. It's having the discernment to separate what deserves your energy from what is just noise. When someone criticizes you, you can receive it as an attack on your identity or as information. When you fail, you can receive it as proof of inadequacy or as data for adjustment. When someone walks away, you can receive it as confirmation that you're unlovable or as the release of something no longer aligned with your path. Same events, completely different receptions. And here's the superpower. You choose. You always have. You just didn't know it. Marcus Aurelius woke up every day knowing he would deal with jealous, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest people. He was the emperor of Rome, facing conspiracies, wars, and plagues. And what was his method? He prepared his mind before events arrived. He practiced reception before he needed it. Begin each day by telling yourself, "Today I will meet interference, ingratitude, arrogance, deceit, envy, and antisocial behavior." All of this happens because they cannot tell good from evil. Do you see the genius? He didn't expect the world to be kind. He trained himself to receive the world as it is. That preparation meant nothing caught him off guard. Nothing destroyed him. He received everything with the strength of someone who had already decided how he would respond. This is the first great lesson of the Stoic art of receiving: anticipation. not anxiety, not worry, but mental preparation, deciding in advance which version of you will meet the challenge. Will you receive life as a victim, or as a student, as defeated, or as someone collecting experience? Here's something that will free you. Nothing that happens to you has inherent meaning. No event arrives labeled good or bad. We attach the labels. Epictetus taught that there are only two things in the universe: what is under our control and what isn't. And the only thing truly under our control is our judgment. Losing your job is not automatically a tragedy. It's a change in circumstances. What turns it into a tragedy is the story you tell yourself about what it means for your worth, your future, your identity. Likewise, success is not automatically glorious. It's a change in circumstances. What turns it into ego inflation is the judgment you make about your superiority. The Stoics practiced a powerful mental exercise called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. Not pessimism, but training. Seneca advised, set aside a number of days during which you will be content with the scantiest food and the roughest clothing, asking yourself, is this what I used to fear? He was training reception, preparing his mind to receive even poverty without collapse. Can you do that? Can you imagine the loss that scares you most and train your mind to receive it with dignity, not to wish for loss, but to become so internally strong that even loss doesn't destroy you? Because when you build that strength, something remarkable happens. You stop living in fear. Most people are chained by fear of how they'll receive bad things, fear of rejection, failure, criticism, loss, and that fear keeps them from fully living. But when you master the art of receiving, when you know you can face even the worst with strength and dignity, fear loses its grip. Now let's dive into something that will completely flip your understanding upside down. The Stoics didn't just know how to endure adversity. They developed a revolutionary way to turn every hardship into fuel for growth. And that changes everything. You know that person who betrayed you, that boss who humiliated you, that friend who walked away. The Stoics had a radical view on this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if someone insults you, harms you, or offends you, they do you no real damage. The damage comes from accepting those things as offenses. Wait, what? He's saying the person who attacked you isn't the real problem. The real problem is you receiving it as an attack. Let's slow this down, because this goes against instinct. When someone criticizes you harshly, two things happen. First, words leave that person's mouth. You don't control that. Second, you interpret those words, assign meaning to them, and generate an emotional response. That part, you fully control. The question is, are you using that control, or are you on autopilot? Most people live on autopilot. Someone speaks sharply, and we instantly feel attacked. Someone ignores us, and we instantly feel rejected. Someone achieves what we wanted, and we instantly feel inferior. This automatic reaction is the opposite of self-mastery. It's slavery to external circumstances. Epictetus was brutally clear about this. He said, if you hand over control of your inner peace to someone else, you become their slave. Think about how deep that is. Every time someone's comment ruins your day, you've handed them control over your life. Every time an external situation dictates your inner state, you've become its prisoner. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You're giving up that control voluntarily. No one can break into your mind and force a thought. No one can compel you to interpret something in a specific way. You are choosing those interpretations. You are choosing those reactions. The problem is that you're doing it unconsciously, automatically, untrained. The Stoics proposed the opposite, making reception conscious, creating space between the external stimulus and your internal response. And in that space, in that sacred pause, lies power. That's where you decide who you are and how you respond to the world. Seneca developed a fascinating exercise for this. He called it the evening review. Every night before bed, he reviewed his day and asked himself, where did I fail today? What did I do well? What duty did I neglect? But most importantly, he examined how he received events. Did he react with unnecessary anger? Did he let something trivial disturb him? Did he hand over his inner peace to something external? This wasn't about self-punishment. It was about training perception, about spotting automatic patterns and consciously replacing them with wiser responses, turning every day into a lesson in the art of receiving. So let me ask you, have you ever stopped to analyze how you receive things? Are you aware of your interpretation patterns? Or do you just react, and then wonder why life feels so chaotic? Here's a liberating truth. You don't need to change the world to change your life. You only need to change how you receive the world. This isn't wishful thinking or toxic positivity. It's mental strategy. It's recognizing where your real power actually lies. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. He faced wars at the borders, betrayal at home, and devastating plagues killing his people. And in the middle of all that, he wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment about it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Revoke the judgment, change the interpretation, reconsider the verdict. That's practical self-mastery. It's realizing you're creating catastrophic meanings for neutral events and consciously choosing more useful ones instead. That's not self-deception, that's self-management. That's becoming the master of your own mind. And here's something even more interesting. The Stoics understood that how you receive small things trains how you'll receive big things. If you fall apart when someone cuts you off in traffic, what happens when real loss hits? If a single critique at work destroys you, how will you handle a true crisis? That's why they trained reception daily. Every minor irritation was practice. Every small discomfort was preparation for greater trials. Seneca said we should always be preparing and strengthening ourselves against the blows of fortune so that when they come, we can remain standing. Are you doing that? Are you using daily inconveniences as training, or are you complaining about every setback, dramatizing every inconvenience, and hoping you'll magically be strong when real hardship arrives? Here's a practical test. Today, observe how you receive small things: the delayed bus, the empty coffee pot, the message that wasn't answered, the meeting that ran long. How do you receive them? With calm acceptance or dramatic resistance? How you receive small things reveals how you'll receive major trials. The Stoics had a powerful phrase for this: amor fati, love of fate. It wasn't about liking everything that happens. It was about receiving everything with the mindset of someone who knows how to extract value from any situation. Centuries later, Nietzsche captured this Stoic spirit perfectly when he said, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati. That one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely to endure what is necessary, but to love it." Imagine that power, not just tolerating what life brings, but receiving it with the attitude of someone ready to turn it into strength. That's not passivity. It's the most intense mental activity there is. It's taking every situation and asking, how can I use this? How does this make me stronger? What is this teaching me? Marcus Aurelius practiced this relentlessly. He wrote, "The obstacle to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Do you see the mental move here? The obstacle isn't something to complain about. It's something to use. Resistance isn't the problem. It's the raw material of strength. If you're realizing how often you've been reacting to life instead of responding consciously, leave a like on this video. And tell me in the comments, what recent situation could you have received differently? Now let's move into the Stoics' practical arsenal. Because one thing is understanding, philosophically, that you control how you receive things. It's a completely different thing to know exactly what to do when anger is rising, when anxiety is taking over, when you feel like you're about to explode. The Stoics developed concrete techniques for these moments, and they work. The first technique is called the view from above. Marcus Aurelius used this constantly. When he felt overwhelmed by a situation, he would mentally step back and observe it from a higher perspective. He wrote, "Observe things from above, thousands of herds, thousands of rituals, all kinds of journeys in storms and calm, and the differences among those who are born, live together, and die." What was he doing? He was changing the scale of his perception. That problem that feels enormous up close, when viewed from a cosmic perspective, reveals its true size. This isn't about minimizing your problems. It's about contextualizing them. It's about receiving them in proper proportion. Think about it like this. You're furious because someone was rude to you at the grocery store. Now imagine watching that scene from above, like a drone shot. You see two people having an unpleasant moment in a grocery store, in a city, in a country, on a planet orbiting a star, inside a galaxy among billions of galaxies. Suddenly, that moment of rudeness looks exactly like what it is. A tiny event that you're choosing to turn into an epic drama. That realization is liberating, because you see that you're spending precious emotional energy on things that, on the scale of existence, are insignificant. And that awareness changes how you receive events. You might still feel annoyed, but now you know you're choosing to be annoyed by something small. The second Stoic technique is the dichotomy of control. Epictetus hammered this idea relentlessly. He said there are only two categories in the universe, things that depend on you and things that don't. All wisdom lies in knowing the difference and acting accordingly. What depends on you? Your judgments, your desires, your aversions, your intentions, your actions. What doesn't depend on you? Literally everything else. Your body, the family you were born into, what other people think of you, the outcomes of your efforts, the economy, the weather, the length of your life. Here's the mental rule. You invest emotional energy only in what's under your control. Everything else you receive with philosophical indifference. Not indifference as in, I don't care. Indifference as in, I don't let this control my inner state. A practical example, you're in a job interview. What's under your control? Your preparation, your attitude, your answers, your effort. What isn't? Whether you get hired. That depends on countless variables you don't control. Other candidates, company budget, the interviewer's preferences, internal politics. So how do you receive the situation? You give your best to what you control, and you receive the outcome with equanimity. If it's positive, great. If it's negative, you don't collapse, because you never placed your inner peace in something outside your control. You did your part. The universe responded in a certain way. Next, that's not coldness. That's emotional intelligence. It's knowing where to invest your energy. It's the difference between people who live on an emotional roller coaster and people who maintain a solid inner center, regardless of circumstances. Seneca had a fascinating technique he called negative visualization. He suggested spending time vividly imagining the loss of things you value, not to attract loss, but to prepare your mind to receive it without falling apart. He wrote, "Think of your life as something lent to you, which can be reclaimed at any moment. Imagine the freedom in that. If you've already mentally rehearsed loss, then if it comes, you won't be caught off guard. You've trained your reception. Try this now. Think of something you're afraid of losing. A person, a status, a possession, an ability. Now imagine you've already lost it. How would you deal with it? What inner resources would you activate? What version of you would emerge from that loss? When you practice this regularly, something powerful happens. You realize you would survive. You discover strength within yourself that you didn't even know existed. And that realization changes how you live right now. You stop living in fear of loss and start living in gratitude for presence. The Stoics also practiced memento mori, remembering death. Every morning, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that he could die that day. Not to be morbid, but to receive each day as the gift it is. To avoid wasting time on trivialities. To live with the intensity of someone who knows time is limited. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That changes everything." Does that cruel comment on social media still matter when you remember you might die tomorrow? Does that petty argument with your partner still feel important when you consider that one of you might not be here next week? Does that pride that keeps you from apologizing still make sense when you realize time is finite? Memento mori isn't about living in fear of death. It's about living with the clarity that death provides. It's about receiving each day knowing it's borrowed, not guaranteed. And that awareness automatically reshapes your priorities. Now comes a technique that's pure gold: instant reinterpretation. The Stoics trained themselves to immediately reinterpret events in a useful way the moment they happened. Marcus Aurelius was a master of this. When someone insulted him, instead of receiving it as an offense, he received it as an opportunity to practice patience. When he faced difficulty, instead of receiving it as injustice, he received it as resilience training. When he lost something, instead of receiving it as tragedy, he received it as freedom from attachment. He wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." That sounds simplistic until you understand the mechanism. He's saying the real damage isn't in the external event, but in your interpretation of it. So if you consciously choose an interpretation that doesn't harm you, you literally haven't been harmed. Example: someone spreads a lie about you. That's an external fact you don't control. Now you can receive it as, "My reputation is ruined. I'm a victim. Life is unfair." Or you can receive it as, "This will reveal who actually knows me." It's a chance to practice not depending on other people's opinions. And anyone who believes lies about me without checking wasn't worth my energy anyway. Same situation, radically different receptions, completely opposite internal outcomes. And the choice is always yours. Seneca had a line that summarizes all of this. Life is long if you know how to use it. He wasn't talking about the number of years. He was talking about the quality of reception. Because the person who receives every event as drama wastes life in emotional turbulence. The person who receives every event as an opportunity for growth multiplies the value of every experience. The Stoics understood something revolutionary. You can't control the river of life, but you can learn to navigate it with mastery. And navigating with mastery doesn't mean avoiding the rapids. It means learning to receive the rapids in a way that strengthens you instead of drowning you. Every event you face is neutral until you assign meaning to it. That assignment of meaning is your most sacred responsibility, because that's where you define who you are. Not by what happens to you, but by how you receive what happens. Now we reach the point where philosophy becomes identity. Because one thing is using Stoic techniques occasionally when you remember. Something entirely different is becoming someone who naturally receives everything with wisdom. The Stoics didn't want you to practice Stoicism, they wanted you to become Stoic, and that difference is enormous. Marcus Aurelius had a daily practice that shaped his character. He would wake up and mentally prepare for the day ahead. Not just thinking about what he was going to do, but about who he was going to be. He wrote, "At dawn, when you struggle to get out of bed, tell yourself, 'I am rising to do the work of a human being.'" Do you see what he's doing? He's defining his identity before facing the day. And here's the secret that changes everything. You don't receive life according to what you know. You receive life according to who you are. If your deepest identity is that of a victim, you'll receive everything as victimhood. If your deepest identity is that of a warrior, you'll receive everything as a battle to be won. If your deepest identity is that of a sage, you'll receive everything as a lesson to be learned. The Stoics were obsessed with building strong identities. They repeated to themselves who they were until it became automatic. Epictetus told his students, "First decide who you want to be, then do what you must do." Not the other way around. Identity first, action second. So let me ask you, Who have you decided to be? Because if you've never consciously decided, you're living with a default identity, one formed by accident, by past trauma, by social conditioning, by automatic reactions, and that accidental identity is determining how you receive everything. Let's do a powerful mental exercise. Think of the person you admire most, someone you consider wise, strong, balanced. Now imagine that you are that person. How would they receive the difficult situation you're facing right now? How would they interpret that criticism? How would they deal with that loss? When you do this, you realize something crucial. The difference isn't in the circumstances. The difference is in the identity. You are receiving life as a weakened version of yourself. That person you admire would receive it as a stronger version. And here's the key insight. You can choose the stronger version. Right now, you don't need to wait until you're wiser. You can receive this moment the way your wiser self would receive it. Seneca practiced something he called living as if being observed by the wise. He imagined that a perfect sage was always watching his actions, his reactions, the way he received things. This wasn't about external judgment. It was about creating a constant internal reference. He would ask himself, what would Zeno do? How would Socrates receive this? How would Cato interpret this situation? That single question changed his reception instantly, because it pulled him out of autopilot and into awareness. It activated the wiser version of himself. You can do this right now. Choose your reference sage. It can be an ancient philosopher, someone you know, or the ideal version of yourself. And before reacting to any situation, ask, how would my reference sage receive this? That pause, that internal consultation, that's where transformation happens. The Stoics also understood something crucial about habits. Epictetus said, every habit and ability is maintained and strengthened by corresponding actions. If you want to be good at reading, read. If you want to be good at writing, write. And he applied this to reception. If you want to be good at receiving adversity with calm, practice receiving small adversities with calm. That means every micro moment of your day is training. That irritating email, training. That red light that just turned red in front of you, training. That ambiguous comment you don't know how to interpret, training. You are constantly reinforcing a pattern of reception. The question is, which one? If you react with irritation to every inconvenience, you strengthen the habit of irritation. If you dramatize every setback, you strengthen the habit of drama. But if you consciously practice receiving with equanimity, you strengthen the habit of wisdom. And with enough time, that habit becomes your nature. Marcus Aurelius wrote something profound about this. The quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts. He understood that you literally become what you practice mentally. If you practice interpreting everything negatively, you become a negative person. If you practice finding opportunity and challenge, you become resilient. And here's a truth few people realize. You're not only practicing when you're trying, you're practicing all the time. Every unexamined thought is practice. Every automatic reaction is practice. You are constantly sculpting who you are, either consciously or unconsciously. The Stoics had a concept called prososche, which means vigilant attention. It was a constant mental presence, a watchfulness over one's own thoughts and reactions. Not tension, not paranoia, awareness. When you develop prososche, something fascinating happens. You begin to notice the space between stimulus and response. Someone says something that would normally irritate you, and you notice, interesting. My mind wants to get irritated right now, but I don't have to follow that impulse. That recognition creates freedom. You stop being a slave to automatic reactions. Seneca said that most people don't truly live. They merely exist. They're dragged through life like a leaf in the wind. They never consciously decide how they will receive things. They just react, and call that sequence of reactions a life. But the Stoic sage lives differently. Every reception is intentional. Every response is chosen, not because they are rigid or controlling, but because they are present, because they understand that how you receive this moment is shaping who you are becoming. Epictetus had students who came looking for quick techniques, shortcuts to wisdom. He frustrated them because he had no shortcuts to offer. He said, "How long did you train to become foolish? Years. So why do you expect to become wise in weeks?" The art of reception is built day by day, choice by choice, moment by moment. There is no instant version, but there is a cumulative one. Every time you consciously choose a wise reception instead of an automatic reaction, you make a deposit into your account of wisdom, and with enough deposits, you become wealthy in equanimity. Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome for nearly 20 years. He faced endless wars, devastating plagues, family betrayals, political conspiracies. And near the end of his life he wrote, "Confound those who harm you by doing them good." Not because he was naive, but because he had transcended the need to react. He had reached a level of reception where even an attack was received as an opportunity to demonstrate virtue. That is mastery, not never feeling affected, but feeling, recognizing the feeling, and choosing a response that strengthens you instead of weakening you, turning every reception into an act of self-mastery. And here's something motivating. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. At first, it's hard. You slip back into old patterns constantly, but with consistent practice, wise reception becomes automatic. You no longer have to fight so much. You naturally receive with equanimity, because that's who you've become. The Stoics called this apatheia, not apathy, but not being ruled by passions, having emotions without being enslaved by them, feeling anger without acting from anger, feeling fear without being paralyzed by fear, feeling sadness without drowning in it. Now we move to the real test. Because it's easy to talk about wisdom when everything is calm. The true test of the Stoic art of acceptance comes when you face extreme situations, when the pain is real, when the loss is devastating, when everything you've built collapses. That's when you discover whether you've truly internalized the principles or merely memorized elegant phrases. Marcus Aurelius did not philosophize from an ivory tower. He philosophized in military tents, surrounded by death and disease. He lost several children. He faced betrayal from people he trusted. He lived through a plague that killed millions. And in the midst of all that, he kept writing about virtue and wisdom, not because he was insensitive, but because he had developed an almost superhuman ability to accept even horror with dignity. He wrote during one of his darkest moments, "Human life is brief. We must make use of the present with reason and justice. Be sober, even in your moments of rest." Surrounded by chaos, he remained focused on what was within his control. Facing tragedy, he continued choosing how to receive it. Here's the brutal truth. You will face extreme situations. It's inevitable. You will lose people you love. You will be betrayed. Dreams will be shattered. You'll face illness, injustice, and moments when it feels like everything has fallen apart. The question isn't if this will happen. The question is how you will receive it when it does. Seneca lived this truth. He was exiled, lost everything he had built, and was separated from his family. And from exile, he wrote letters that became part of humanity's intellectual inheritance. Letters about turning adversity into advantage, about receiving destruction as reconstruction, about finding freedom even in confinement. He wrote, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests strong men." But he wasn't merely observing, he was living it. Every word he wrote was a real-time test of his own philosophy, and he passed. Not because he didn't suffer, but because he received suffering as a Stoic. Here's what this means in practice. When you lose someone you love, the pain is real. Grief is legitimate. The Stoics never denied that, but there is a difference between feeling pain and becoming pain. a difference between honoring loss and being destroyed by it. And that difference lies in reception. A Stoic cries, a Stoic feels. But a Stoic does not add unnecessary layers of suffering to suffering that already exists. He doesn't obsess over why me. He doesn't create catastrophic stories about never recovering. He doesn't drown in self-pity. He feels pain in its pure form, without the mental elaborations that multiply suffering. Marcus Aurelius had a technique for extreme moments. He told himself, "This is not a misfortune. To endure it nobly is a blessing." Notice the shift in perspective. The event remains difficult, but the opportunity to demonstrate strength becomes the focus. When his child died, he could have received it as divine punishment, cosmic injustice, or proof of a cruel universe. Instead, he received it as nature following its course, as something that eventually happens to all parents, as an opportunity to prove that he practiced what he preached. This is not coldness, it is wisdom of the highest order. It's recognizing that adding resentment to pain doesn't reduce pain, it only creates more suffering. It's choosing to carry only the unavoidable weight, not the optional one. Epictetus captured this with devastating simplicity. Do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go smoothly. It sounds like resignation until you grasp its depth. He's not saying you shouldn't have preferences. He's saying your inner peace should not depend on those preferences being fulfilled. You may prefer not to get sick, but if you do, don't add, "This shouldn't be happening to me," to physical pain. You may prefer loyalty. But if someone betrays you, don't add, "I didn't deserve this," to the betrayal. You may prefer that your plans succeed. But if they fail, don't add, "My life is ruined," to disappointment. The Stoics understood that most of our suffering comes from resisting reality, from mentally fighting what has already happened, from demanding that the universe should have acted differently. That struggle is completely useless. It's like arguing with gravity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you, even if it seems unpleasant, because it leads to something the universe is trying to accomplish." He believed in a larger order, even when it wasn't visible, and that belief allowed him to receive even chaos with a form of trust. You don't need to adopt his cosmic worldview, but you can adopt the practice. You can choose to believe there's something to learn, even in the worst situations. You can choose to trust that you'll discover strength you didn't know you had. You can choose to receive the unknown with curiosity instead of terror. Seneca was ultimately ordered by Nero to commit suicide. Read that again. He was commanded to end his own life. And do you know how he received it? With dignity. He gathered his friends, discussed philosophy until the end, and faced death as a final exercise in self-mastery. Not because he wanted to die, but because he had spent his entire life practicing how to receive even the unacceptable with virtue. That is the highest level of the art of acceptance. To look at your own death and receive it not as tragic annihilation, but as a natural event. To preserve your humanity until the final second. To refuse to let even the greatest loss, the loss of life itself, strip you of dignity. You may not face exactly what Seneca faced, but you will face your own extremes, and when those moments arrive, you will have a choice. Will you receive them as a victim of a cruel fate, or as someone being tested and refined? The Stoics believed challenges don't come to destroy us. They come to reveal what we're made of. They exist to draw out strength that would remain dormant if life were easy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will flow forever if you keep digging. When everything collapses externally, you can dig internally. You can uncover resources you didn't know existed. You can become someone you never would have become if everything had been easy. That is Stoic alchemy, turning lead into gold, suffering into wisdom. And here's the remarkable thing. Those who master this art become different. They carry a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. Their strength doesn't come from never being broken, but from being rebuilt so many times that they now know they are indestructible where it truly matters. You can become that person, not instantly, not without training, but consistently, day after day, choice after choice. You can build this inner fortress. You can develop the ability to receive even storms with the calm of a mountain. Epictetus had students who complained that the exercises were too difficult, and he replied, "If you want something you've never had, you must do something you've never done. You want peace that circumstances cannot steal? Then you must practice maintaining peace under increasingly difficult conditions. There is no other path." The Stoics never promised an easy life. They promised you could become strong enough for whatever life brings, and they kept that promise by living as examples. Marcus Aurelius ruled with wisdom. Seneca faced death with dignity. Epictetus transcended slavery through a free mind. And you? Are you ready to stop demanding that life be easier and start becoming stronger? Are you ready to receive whatever comes with the mindset of someone who knows how to extract gold from any situation? We've reached the turning point, the moment when everything we've discussed stops being theory and becomes real transformation. Because there is a final stage in the Stoic art of receiving that few people reach, but when they do, it changes everything. It's the moment when you stop practicing conscious reception and simply become someone who naturally receives with wisdom, when Stoicism stops being something you do and becomes who you are. Marcus Aurelius described this state beautifully. Confound people by doing them good. Show them through your actions what it means to be the product of a true philosophy. He was no longer trying to be stoic. He was stoic. His actions flowed effortlessly from a transformed character. And that is the ultimate goal. Here is the deeper truth. You haven't mastered the art of receiving when you can apply techniques during hard moments. You've mastered it when your first instinctive response is already wise, when you no longer need conscious effort because wisdom has become your nature, when receiving well stops being work and becomes simply who you are. This takes time. Seneca practiced for decades. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations daily to stay focused. Epictetus taught every single day because teaching kept the principles alive. None of them achieved perfection overnight, but all of them achieved genuine transformation through persistent practice. And here's what happens when you truly transform. The same situations that once destroyed you now simply pass through you, not because you've become numb, but because you've developed the ability to feel without being ruled by feeling, to observe your emotions without fully identifying with them. To say, "I am feeling anger," instead of "I am anger," that distinction is everything. When you are your emotions, you are at their mercy. When you have emotions but remain the conscious observer behind them, you retain power. The Stoics called this the hegemonikon, the ruling center of the soul, the part of you that remains untouched, no matter what happens externally. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Baisadidi, at the beginning of this journey, that sounded like a principle. Now you understand its depth. It's not a motivational quote. It's a map to complete inner freedom. When you truly internalize that you control only your interpretations, not events, something remarkable happens. You stop wasting energy trying to control what was never yours to control. You stop resenting reality, and all that energy once lost to resistance and complaint becomes available for what truly matters. Epictetus told his students, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters." After years of teaching, he witnessed extraordinary transformations. Students shattered by loss became resilient. People who lived as victims became active authors of their lives, not because circumstances changed, but because reception changed. And look at what that frees up. When you're no longer burning mental energy on drama and resistance, you can finally direct that energy toward creating, contributing, and truly living. You exit survival mode and enter a state of growth. You stop merely reacting to life and start shaping it within what is actually under your control. The Stoics believed the good life didn't depend on wealth, fame, or power. It depended on living according to virtue. And virtue meant excellence of character, wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. It meant receiving everything life brings with dignity and responding with integrity. Seneca experienced extreme wealth and total loss. He discovered that peace had nothing to do with external conditions. It depended on how aligned he was with his values. When he lived with virtue, even poverty couldn't disturb his peace. When he betrayed his principles, even wealth couldn't save him from suffering. This realization frees you from an invisible prison, the belief that happiness will come later, when you achieve more, earn more, get recognition, or when life finally becomes perfect. The Stoics show you something radical. Peace is available now, in this moment, with life exactly as it is. All it requires is a shift in how you receive. Marcus Aurelius had everything modern society claims brings happiness: absolute power, immense wealth, total recognition. And yet he wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The Emperor of Rome telling us happiness doesn't live in an empire, but in the mind. Imagine the freedom in that. If your peace doesn't depend on external circumstances, nothing can truly take it from you. You can lose everything materially and keep everything internally. You become unshakable, not because nothing affects you, but because your roots run so deep that no storm can uproot you. And here's the beautiful irony. When you stop depending on external circumstances for peace, your external circumstances often improve, because now you act from strength, not desperation, from wisdom, not fear. You build on solid ground instead of emotional quicksand. The Stoics understood that people at peace with themselves are naturally more effective in the world. They see reality clearly. They make better decisions. They are not hijacked by emotional turbulence. They act with precision and purpose. Epictetus had a radical definition of freedom. He said the slave who masters his mind is freer than the king enslaved by his passions. And he wasn't speaking metaphorically. He had been a literal slave. He achieved inner freedom long before physical freedom, proving that true liberty is a state of mind. So let me ask you, are you ready for that freedom? Ready to stop being a slave to circumstances, to other people's opinions, to your own unchecked emotions? Ready to become truly free through self-mastery? The journey starts now, not tomorrow, not when life gets easier. Now, with the very next thing that happens to you. Will you receive it the same way you always have, reinforcing old patterns? Or will you receive it consciously, planting the seeds of transformation? Near the end of his life, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste the rest of your time here worrying about other people unless it serves the common good. You are depriving yourself of another task when you dwell on such thoughts." That clarity came from decades of practicing the art of reception. You can develop that clarity too. You can stop wasting precious mental energy on what doesn't matter. You can live with the intensity of someone who knows time is limited. You can turn each day into a masterpiece of conscious reception. At the end of his life, Seneca embodied everything he taught. He faced death without panic, without resentment, without begging for more time. He received that final moment the same way he received life, with dignity, acceptance, and virtue. That was the ultimate proof of Stoic mastery. And you don't need to wait for death to live this way. You can start today, with the irritating situation, the difficult person, the plan that might fail. Every one of these moments is a training ground, a chance to grow stronger. The Stoic art of receiving doesn't promise a life without problems. It promises a strength so deep that problems stop defining you. It doesn't promise the end of suffering, but wisdom within suffering. It doesn't promise control over the world, only mastery over yourself, and that is the only control that truly matters. Marcus Aurelius left a legacy that spans millennia, not because he conquered lands, but because he conquered himself. Seneca still influences millions, not through wealth, but through wisdom. Epictetus is studied worldwide, not because he was powerful, but because he was free. And you? What legacy are you building? When people observe how you receive life's challenges, what will they learn? Reactivity and drama, or calm strength and wisdom? The choice has always been yours. From the first moment of this video to now, from today to the rest of your life, you can be dragged by circumstances or become the mountain storms only make stronger. You can be a victim of events or the master of interpretation. The Stoics gave you the map. Now you must walk the path. Practice daily, moment by moment. Choose wise reception over automatic reaction. Build, brick by brick, an inner fortress nothing can destroy. And here is the final promise. If you do this consistently, something incredible will happen. 1 year from now, you won't recognize the person you used to be. Situations that once crushed you will barely register. You'll realize you've become fundamentally different, free, strong, and wise. This transformation is real. Thousands have proven it over thousands of years. Marcus Aurelius proved it while ruling an empire. Seneca proved it in the face of death. Epictetus proved it by transcending slavery. Now it's your turn. Within the unique circumstances of your life, start now. With the next thing that happens, receive with awareness, receive with wisdom, receive like a Stoic, and watch your life transform from the inside out. If this video resonated with you, if it changed how you see your own life, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. And most importantly, apply it. Because knowledge without application is just entertainment. Transformation comes from practice. Tell us in the comments, what was the biggest insight you gained from this video? What situation will you receive differently from now on? Let's build a community committed to self-mastery. People who understand that true strength comes from within. On your screen now are 2 more videos to continue this journey. One explores how the Stoics dealt with anger and transformed it into power. The other reveals the morning practices Marcus Aurelius used to prepare his mind each day. Watch both. Your transformation is worth the time. Remember, you don't control what happens, but you always control how you receive it. And in that choice lies all the power you need to live an extraordinary life. The Stoic art of receiving isn't just philosophy. It's the key to absolute inner freedom. Use it. Your best life is waiting on the other side.